Welcome back to Reason for Truth. Today we're going to talk about part 2, multiculturalism, as I had promised. In our last episode, we defined what multiculturalism is. But today I'm going to show you what God's Word says about multiculturalism. So listen, strap in, let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to Reason for Truth. You know, truth comes first, reasons come last. What we're always in constantly learning, because when we stop learning, we stop teaching, or at least stop teaching well. Today I want to pick up again from part 1, get the big picture recap, new data set, and see, listen, we're going to switch gears, and we're going to jump right into the Old Testament, the book of Isaiah, chapter 7, and we're going to read what about multiculturalism, the coming of Emmanuel in chapter 7, verses 1 to 25, to discover an interesting example of intermarriage and multiculturalism, what God's Word says about that. Listen, America functioned very well for hundreds of years due to the shared Judeo-Christian, values, and, which was reflected in its laws and the way just people acted in the population. This in great part was due to the fact that the melting pot was mostly within citizens, and I'm just saying this not to be political, but it's the truth, from European descent. Most of those people were Catholic or Protestant. This meant, for example, the Polish people intermarried with Italian people with German people. Now, despite their differences, and even Latin American people, Spanish people, because most of them are predominantly going to be Catholic. That's changing a lot, but still so. Despite their differences, they all worship the same God, same Bible, and they all have been either, again, Protestant or Catholic, but they still came from the same religious beliefs, even though their cultures were different, ate different food, had different experiences, maybe thought, in some cases, thought differently. Now, next came the influx of Jewish immigrants who fit in well, right? Because they were coming out of World War II, almost being made extinct, but they also believe in the Old Testament, and Christians have embraced them for biblical reasons. And Jewish people are very nice, good. But listen, some people are going to disagree with that, but that's the truth. That being said, the modern Jewish people have mostly taken social and political stances that I don't understand, that are not in line with the Old or New Testament. I asked, and this is not reflective of all Jewish people, but there's more Jewish people in the United States than any other country in the world. There's more Jewish people in New York City than any other state in the Union. That's the United States. So the same is true for most people who call themselves Christians, by the way. You could criticize Jewish people, but how many Christians or so-called Christians say they're Christians on the inside or outside, but not really the inside, right? It's called cultural Christianity. It's not Orthodox Christianity. Next came influx of Asians into America. My first neighbor was from Japan. The Lees. Oh my gosh, they were the greatest neighbors. You're going back to the 70s. Long time ago, maybe late 60s, early 70s. The greatest neighbors, some of the best neighbors I ever had. Wonderful. And I think they were Christian. I don't remember, but they certainly had the spirit of Christianity in them, at the very least. All right. So I have a number of great Asian Jewish friends, and I even have some Muslim friends. And one of my closest friends in Charlotte has a Chinese mom and a Sicilian dad. So we're very close. And we don't really care, listen, we're just good buddies. And I'm ringing the bell regarding Eastern philosophies, and religions that are permeating America. I wrote about it in my first book, Right for You, But Not for Me. But with too much multiculturalism comes much division, and you can't have a harmonious culture with just all these worldviews vying for the number one spot, because they believe totally different things in some cases. It's nice to daydream about such a thing, but it's not true, right? So why? Because each group wants to be the leader, determining the values, the laws, the policies, and whatnot. And, now we find potential political leaders from, you look at our United States, you could say Vance. He's married to a Hindu woman. He's American, was a Navy SEAL. That's great. I don't have a problem with that. The bottom line is, as long as you adhere to traditional American values based on Judeo-Christian values. So while the vice president and his Hindu wife are a beautiful picture of human harmony and existence with religious and cultures that are mixed, the question, as long as you're not pushing for, Hindu law, according to the Vedas, or Sharia law for Muslims, or New Age mysticism, you can accommodate people who hold those beliefs, but one of those beliefs is going to rule the day in terms of law, how it's implemented, and who's it implemented against, right? Including atheism and communism. So, or will we continue to be a systems based on the Bible here in the United States? That's a question. Oh, the world's changing, all right? So there's beauty in it. There's also danger. Buddhism in China, Orthodox Christianity in Russia, Hinduism in India. Christianity is growing in countries, sub-Saharan desert, that whole area, Asian area. That's a different subject for where Christianity is spreading. And even the Middle East, Iran, and even now starting in Iraq. So in the book of Isaiah, though, as I had promised, chapter 7, read about the coming of Emmanuel in chapter 7. We talked a little bit about that in the last episode, verses 1 to 25, and it's within this passage that is an interesting example of intermarriage and multiculturalism. Picking it up at verse 8, it says, "For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin, and within 65 years Ephraim will be shattered from being a people." Wow. Really, I'd say from a people group. Verse 9b goes on to say, "If you are not firm in what? In faith." It doesn't say firm in whatever color you are. It says in faith, common faith, you will not be firm at all. It says it all right there. I think you could say that could be the entire podcast. So what, Steve? Well, in verse 8, God makes clear through Isaiah that within 65 years, i.e., by 669 BC, when the resettling of the land of Israel by foreign colonies would have taken place, is the setting for this verse. This intermarriage with the Israelites, it resulted in the birth of what? The Samaritans. Remember the good story of the Good Samaritan as a new mixed race. Different race altogether. Jewish people don't consider Samaritans to be real Jewish people. It says for 9b, says if you are not firm in what faith, you will not be firm at all. A literal translation of the last part of this verse, as I just wrote out, it really reveals a play on words. That if you will not be sure, you cannot be secure or unsecured, right? Or versus secure. That's kind of what that's saying. So why is this important? Because a house divided will collapse, period. Now, I know God doesn't care what race we are, but as far as our religious beliefs in terms of seeking Him, multiculturalism, or pluralism, I should say, which is an offshoot of multiculturalism, is not acceptable in God's eyes. Listen, I don't think God cares if you're black, marrying white, Indian, married a German. I don't think He really cares at all. I think He thinks that's beautiful. He just wants to make sure you're going to say you're Christian, that's what you do. You marry another Christian. All right. That being said, when intermarriage is based on common belief of Christianity or any other religious beliefs, or even differences, differences begin to dissipate. In 9b, verse 9b, God is saying that believing entails having knowledge of what God's word, we cover that in another entire episode, accepting that to be true, placing that trust or our trust in Jesus Christ. Listen, we are to believe the Lord is the key to receiving His promises, John 14:1. So what happens when multiculturalism turns into religious pluralism, as I said, which is the belief that all religions are in part truth and lead to the same place, right? That's what it's saying. And people start leaving the Christian faith for pluralism. The answer includes having new cultural values, or perhaps that's where it starts. You end up then having new laws and people finding things acceptable that are not in the Bible or against biblical truth. And as a result, in this case, you end up with a whole nother country. I mean, the United States, we could say, is an experiment, but I don't think it's ever going to be what it was. I think you'll have tribalism, which is parts of America will be true tried American based on Christian values, and it could have people from different ethnicities. But perhaps this means a whole new country of tribalism altogether, meaning that people groups stay in their respected separate areas of the country or the city, like New York City has its ethnic areas. You have your Jewish area, you have Harlem, that's your African American, your black area. So one thing is for sure, though, which is that one must dominate overall the national system. Who's over that? Is it Hinduism? Again, means the religion of the Indies, or is it going to be Islam Sharia law? I mean, I think you're going to end up with parts of the country that are Muslim, predominantly Muslim. They're going to rule according to Sharia law, and you're going to have Hindus going to do the same, so on and so forth. So, what does this mean for the melting pot of America? And then, for true Christians or a pluralistic religion, our odds can be at odds with itself. So, in verse 7 to 8, it shall not stand. When God said that in Isaiah, it shall not stand, meaning that the plans of humankind are futile, and when they oppose the will of God, you're going to collapse. The whole house of cards. Within this passage, God had Isaiah prophesy, remember, within 65 years, suggesting that one must believe that with all your heart, listen, and fulfill God's promises here. You have to understand that God's word is God's word. You have to believe in that. And the United States and the world will, we're going to leave, what kind of world are we going to leave for our children? People often look back to what the United States was. And, are we going to leave one filled with money and affluence, even though we're losing a lot of that? Or are we going to leave one where the true God of the universe is glorified, known in mind and heart, and perhaps even in action? Multiculturalism is great, but what does that mean? And what does that mean for Christians and the Christian faith? It's all good that the true God of the universe is made clear for everyone, and people can choose what they want. I'm saying you can't have non-believers live in the United States, but who and what values are going to be reflected in our laws and our values? And as much multiculturalism and intermarriage and within society can lead to destruction if you're not careful. So while Isaiah's prophecy was principally addressed to the king Ahaz, it was directed also to others in verse 13, and we qualify as others the application. That's us. It was all others then, all others now. So that's all I'm saying. That's what we have to say. God is clear. Multiculturalism, good. Multiculturalism outside of the religious values of either being Jewish, the Jewish Judeo-Christian values, not good. Okay? It's going to discuss what's going to do. It's going to take down the Christian values, the Christian, etc. That being said, if you really want to get equipped to learn more about worldviews and the existence of God and all these world religions, go over to equippedacademy.com, sign up for the basics and the advanced course. You're going to learn a lot there, and there's other courses there as well. And then make sure you do a couple things. Share this with your friend, and when you're done, bam, Garcia Sinistro, knock out that subscribe button. What are you waiting for? Make sure you tune in. You won't miss any episodes. Remember, I'm your host, Stevie Garofalo, and what this is your reason for truth for today.